Peace and love, peace and love. Another divine commission, another divine time. Um, I'm a little, I gotta press this understanding forward. Why do not black people know nothing past 1700, so to say? Why do not black people have no link of heritage that is older than the European coming to, or the pilgrim coming into the Americas? Ever since the pilgrim came to America, we have been lacking in self-knowledge, self-identity. Now, in 2023, the pilgrims so-called came in, say, with slave 1600s. So from 1600s to 2023, black people have no effing clue of who they are. While everybody on their land that's opposite of them enjoying their land. And this is due to self-education. The pilgrims created schools, and their schools did not educate us of self. Their school systems, education was to teach you that you was a slave. And as we see from the previous Sufa, or the previous lesson of the divine wisdom of the slave, is slavery divine. Check out that Sufa, is slavery divine. And as we need to address the biggest elephant in the room, why, since the pilgrims been here, we have no self-identity of who we are prior to the pilgrims coming here? And that's due to education and public education. And so my message is from the divine. This is a divine message being brought forth to all blacks. We must understand as blacks that we are not black. Not that we disassociate black, but we saying black was given to us by a pilgrim. No pilgrim is gonna tell us that we black, and then they gonna write the rules of what black is and write the defining of black and tell the blacks what they can and cannot have. And since that has been done, blacks has been left lacking of self-knowledge. Blacks have awareness of others, things, and products and beings, but have no self-awareness. Today is to resolve that issue. We need a massive divine education. We need a massive movement in divine education. This will bring us to the place where we are now recognized by ourselves first, from each other respecting themselves first, and then by respecting others. And so I want to bring a Sufa. I want to drop a Sufa addressing what I just said, just to give you a clearer identity of yourself, and that it's up to yourself to identify yourself and not leave it up to no pilgrim. So we're going to go straight into the divine. We're going to go straight into Sufa 35, the study. All the rasa, the study. 1. O you who believe, let it be said, all wasi. All wasi. 2. The vast. All wasi is the vast, the all embracing, the boundless. These three meanings defines all wasi. The study is vast, the study is all embracing, and the study is boundless. And the study is the 32nd name of Allah, who is the one, the absolute, the almighty. For the study is about the journey, not the destination. The study is about the walking, not the path. The study is about the man, the self, not the clothes in which self is adorned. Allah is the study of life as well as life itself. So if anyone asks what is Allah, Allah is life itself. And Allah is the study of life. So we are to study our lives, study that we have been lacking into self-awareness, understanding that we didn't collectively come together and give ourselves our own name and identity. That the name and identity we assume as was given to by pilgrims who came off the Mayflower. You was here before the Mayflower. How you don't know any history of yourself past the Mayflower? Past the pilgrims coming here. All your self-awareness is after the pilgrims here. So as we come into addressing the study, this is what study is for. As we proceed, number 8, Allah is the learning of love and respect of learning. Everything in the universe is based upon learning, and everything in the universe is based upon experiencing. To deny learning is to deny a purpose of existence and being. To deny ourselves from learning. Who are we before pilgrims came to this land? Is to deny our own purpose of existence. We are now being someone else, what they want us to exist as. As we see, Allah is life, and we are life. We are not life, and then we call ourselves black. We are life, and we name ourselves, and whatever we name ourselves, we give ourselves our own life. Right now, the hands of our life is in another labeler. So to deny learning is to deny a purpose of your own existence and your own being. A self who refuses, especially a self that is a man who refuses to learn, profoundly disrespects Allah. Why? To live is to learn. What is it to learn? To learn right from wrong. To learn good from bad. To learn truth from falsity. To learn how we might overcome our own difficulties. As a people, we need to come together to overcome our difficulties. But before we can come together, meaning before we can learn, we need to learn how to learn. And before we learn, and before we can learn how to learn, we need to unlearn. The greatest expression of our self-law and master is love. We call this Salon, which are the teachings of Esau. The teachings of Esau is who the Christians call Jesus the Christ. So the greatest teachings of Jesus, when you agree, is love. That's why the greatest expression of Islam is love. Because Isa is Jesus in Islam. These are the teachings of Isa or Jisa. What was the greatest goal that Jesus was bringing to us? Jesus was bringing the greatest goal of education. Jesus was educating the indigenous people of self-education of who self is. And that education is the enemy. And that self-education is the enemy of self-ignorance. Ignoring self is an enemy of educating self. And when we are consumers of nothing but physical material things, and we not consumers into education and self-education, then we are committing ignorance and evil amongst ourselves. Self-education is number 1. 20, whoever. He dies not who gives life to learning. He dies not who gives life to learning. This is what Esau was teaching us. That he who learns and gives life to learning will not die. Because whoso honors the learned honors Allah. This is how important self-learning is. Learning self. Learning who you are. Learning what you are made of. Learning the nature of what you are made of. Learning your essence. This is all important when it comes to self-education. And mainly verses 22. It is a most wicked crime. See, crime existed. It was the most wicked crime against Allah and Islam to deny education, to deny education, to deny self-education to women and children. And this is what we have been denied in the land of America. The people of America have been denied self-education. And this self-education has been denied to our indigenous women and our indigenous children. Do not be distracted by the pettiness of the false skeptic that seeks to argue against the ties and prove nothing. And prove nothing is true so as to learn nothing. The most dangerous thing, as we see as indigenous people, is to not learn nothing. And to learn something means to learn self. Whoever don't learn self but learns nothing, that which is not self, this is the quicksand of feeble minds. Go in quest of knowledge, even into the strange places. Seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. Indigenous man and woman, seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. Do you know what corrupts the foundation of people? Of a people? Of a people? Do we know what corrupts the foundation of indigenous people and ruins them? It is the arrogance of the learned that weakens the indigenous. It is the disputations of the hypocrite which distracts the indigenous. And it is the orders of ignorant kings finally destroys the indigenous. So indigenous message is this: to spend more time, not money, to spend more time in learning self is better than spending more time praying. The support of deep faith is through wise contemplation. Is through wise contemplation. The support of deep faith is through wise contemplation. It is better to teach knowledge 1 hour in the night than to pray all night. One learned man, one learned self is harder against wickedness than 1,000 ignorant worshipers. The pursuit of knowledge is a divine commandment for all indigenous, known as Muslims, the followers of Musa. Indigenous people, do not waste knowledge on those who are unworthy of it. Wasting knowledge on those who are unworthy of it is like putting pearls, jewels, and 24-karat gold on the necks of swine. A man or woman who shall pursue the path of knowledge, Allah will direct them to the path of paradise. To the path of paradise. Verily, the superiority of a learned self over an ignorant worshiper is like that of the full moon over all the stars. Be careful, indigenous. A tyrant and impostor against indigenous Islam is one who denies proper education to the indigenous people. This is what a tyrant and an imposter is. One who denies proper self-education to the indigenous people. It is commanded to all indigenous people, known as Muslims, to rebel against such evil. Indigenous family, indigenous community, indigenous self. He or she who knows his own or her own self knows Allah. Self who knows their own self knows Allah. That is deep self-education that we have been denied and deprived. And verily the best of Allah's servants are just. Just, just and learned laborers. Learned laborers. And the worst servants of Allah are corrupt and ignorant kings, presidents, sultans. 48, to listen to the words of the learned and to instill into other indigenous people the lessons of science, conscious, the lessons of conscience, conscious. The lessons of conscience is better than religious exercises. And this is where they have catapulted all indigenous beings, where they all performing religious exercises instead of becoming self-aware through lessons of conscience, what we call science. Indigenous science is lessons of consciousness, not religious exercises. We have been praying, shouting, crying, but this is not the solution. The solution resides in the lessons of consciousness. Consciousness is self-education. Self-education is the way of Allah. Self who knows their own self knows Allah, knows their own divine creator. Whoever leaves home in search of knowledge, in search of self-knowledge, walks in the path of Allah. This is true all YC, the study. Here's a study. 1 hour of meditation on the magnificent works of Allah is better than 70 years of prayer. 1 hour of meditation, 1 hour of study is better than 70 years of prayer. The acquisition of knowledge, self-knowledge, is a duty incumbent on every indigenous, called a Muslim, male and female. Both indigenous male and female, the acquisition of self-knowledge is a duty incumbent on every indigenous, known as a Muslim, the follower of Isa, which is Jesus, and Jesus came to fulfill the law of Moses, which is Musa. So when we say Muslim, that is the follower of Musa, and when we say Islam, that is the follower of Isa, Jesus. Both Moses and Jesus are and were indigenous. Original man. So indigenous male and female must acquire knowledge. Must acquire knowledge. Self-knowledge. Self-knowledge enables self to distinguish right from wrong. Self-knowledge lights the way to heaven. Self-knowledge is our friend in the desert. Self-knowledge is our companion when friendless. Self-knowledge guides us to happiness. Self-knowledge supports us to overcome misery. Self-knowledge is an ornament among friends, and self-knowledge is armor against enemies. With knowledge, self-knowledge, anyone rises to the heights of goodness and to a noble position. Anyone may associate with the wealth in this world, but never be beguiled by the wealth. Why? Because of self-knowledge. Yet, self-knowledge helps to attain a perfection. Self-knowledge helps to attain a perfection of happiness, and self-knowledge helps to pertain a perfection of simplicity in this life and the next. Learn to know thyself. Learn to know thyself. Thyself is what we need to know to learn. Learn to know thyself. The calamity of self-knowledge is self-forgetfulness. Forgetfulness is the calamity of self-knowledge. Forgetfulness is the calamity of self-awareness. And tragedy is to waste knowledge. And tragedy or crisis is to waste knowledge. And speak of it to the willingly ignorant, the ignorant, one who wills to ignore. Who are the learned? The ones who are learned is they who live by the virtues of what? Self-know. Self-education makes a city easy to govern. But self-education makes impossible to enslave. Now we see why, as indigenous, we have not been self-educated. We have not been the proper education of self since the pilgrims came on the land. How since we've been on the land, we have no knowledge of self. And since the pilgrims came on the land, we have no knowledge of self. The knowledge we have is the knowledge that the pilgrims gave you, which is not before the pilgrims came. Why you don't have any self-knowledge before the pilgrims came? Why do all your self-awareness comes after the pilgrims came? And why, you know now, self-education makes a city easy to govern. But self-education makes the indigenous people impossible to slave. So you can't enslave an indigenous being with self-education. You have to give them self-ignorance to enslave the indigenous. Did we have this language called English before the Englishmen came? Or did we learn this language from the Englishmen who came? And when we learned this language, did they teach us right education, which is self-knowledge? Do we have any self-awareness of who we are before the pilgrims came? Then we are talking about expel any teacher or preacher or scribe who speaks against study or self-knowledge or right education. Cast them out as impostors who would deny the importance of self-knowledge and sensible reason for all indigenous beings who are known as Muslims. This is an obligation to all members of a holy place of worship of Islam. In Islam, at KOS, we learn to truly to know thyself. Learn to truly.
If you want something good for dinner, try this sausage.
Learn to truly know thyself. To listen to the words of the learned and to instill into others the love of learning. Verily, any man or woman who shall die while studying and improving the knowledge of Islam, the knowledge of Isa, improving the knowledge of Isa, shall be beloved by Allah as equal to the greatest of messengers. Therefore, whosoever honors self-knowledge honors Allah. Peace and love in KOS.